Joining us on the line right now is Maryland State Senator Richard Madaleno, a Democrat from Montgomery County, Vice Chairman of the Budget and Taxation Committee over in Annapolis. Good to have you with us, Senator. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we wanted to have you on because we were sort of caught off guard. I think a lot of people were surprised to hear that in Montgomery County, the school board seems poised not to extend the contract of Joshua Starr, the school superintendent there. No, I don't think a lot of people knew that his job was, at risk there. And you have some very strong feelings about this. First of all, what is going on? Why do you think that they are thinking about not renewing his contract? Is it that, or does Starr want out?
Oh, I definitely think it's members of the Board of Education who don't want to keep him around. We did have an election in November. There was one new person who was added to the Board of Education, and as a result, I think it's changed the balance on the board and how people feel about the superintendent.
And so you think that if a vote were held today, he would not have his contract renewed?
Well, I think with the press reports and everything I've heard and the conversations I've heard with people, it's an 8-member board. They're tied at 4-4. And the way the rules work on this vote is without that 5 votes in favor of a contract, then in essence it fails.
Okay.
So, and I agree with you. I was shocked to learn of this. I mean, I never thought that they were going in a different direction. Does a school system of our size, with close to 150,000 kids, have issues that have to be constantly addressed? Absolutely, but I'm just shocked that they're willing to go in a new direction.
But you have another concern, and that is that this is a very crucial time for the school district, correct?
Well, it is. It is. I mean, think about what's happening in education around the country and in our state and our district. We're adopting a new curriculum. I think we're in the second year of something in Montgomery County we call Curriculum 2.0 as we move towards the National Common Core Standards. We're adopting new tests. This will be the first year every student gets what in Maryland will be called the PARCC test, the new annual assessment for every 3rd to 8th grader. We're trying to deal with unprecedented growth, a challenge of building lots of new schools, a new governor who now has a different approach to funding, a challenging local time because of our regional challenges with the local economy. To toss out somebody seemingly for personal reasons, I don't know who you bring in. I don't know who is the interim leader. I don't know what direction. If the 8 people cannot figure out whether or not they want to stay in the same direction, how are these 8 people going to figure out what the new direction is?
I want to peel this back a little bit here, Senator Madaleno, because I mean, let's face it, you know Montgomery County politics. You've been around a while. You got a pretty important job there, state senator and everything. I don't think anyone is suggesting that Montgomery County schools are failing. In fact, they're still doing quite well. It's one of the reasons people moved to Montgomery County is because of those schools. So clearly, Superintendent Starr is not letting the schools down. You just said seemingly for personal reasons. What do you hear is really going on here?
I think you have, you had a superintendent for 12 years before Josh Starr, Jerry Weiss,
right,
who was, probably one of the nation's highest profile superintendents. Long tenure, 12 years, which is very long for a superintendent in a big school system. Really, personally, probably, if not the best, one of the best politicians I've ever encountered. And, he just was such a large figure and so dominated that school system for good. I mean, pushed it in a lot of good directions that anyone who followed was going to have a challenge. I think the board wanted someone who followed Jerry to be more collaborative with the different components of the school system, whether it be principals, teachers, parents, community leaders, and that's what they found in Dr. Starr. And now, what you hear is people are saying, well, why can't he be more like Jerry?
Yeah.
Well, you purposely wanted someone who wasn't going to be like Jerry. And as someone pointed out to me yesterday in talking about it, sometimes when a pendulum swings one way, the natural reaction is swing it back as far on the other side. And many of these issues seem like style issues. He takes too long to listen. He doesn't make decisions quick enough. We spend too much time studying issues. And it's like, all right, well, if this is
the downside to Wiest, and when he was the superintendent, was that many people thought he was autocratic.
Yes, and that's
so you have a guy that's more collaborative, and they don't like that. Is what you're suggesting?
I mean, all of us have experienced this in the various institutions we're part of. I've been part of turnovers at selecting ministers at churches, and it seems like every time someone else comes in, you go, okay, we want the person who's just the opposite of the person who was there, and no one is fully satisfied.
All right. Very quickly, just you're at a situation right now where funding for education is going to be very critical in Annapolis, and does the fact that you have sort of a vacuum there, you might be going through a change in superintendent, does that put Montgomery County at a disadvantage as they try to get more funding from the state?
Well, I think it puts us at a disadvantage. It puts all of the school systems at a disadvantage because we're by far the largest school system in the state. And when you take the Montgomery County superintendent out of the mix to be down there arguing about what it means to get additional funding for the schools, what it means to deal with additional funding for children who don't speak English, what it means, for children who are living in poverty, taking that voice off the table about teacher evaluations, about testing requirements, all those things, that is a huge vacuum. And I don't know who steps up to fill it.
Our guest is State Senator Richard Madaleno from Montgomery County, and you've had about a week now under Governor Larry Hogan. You've taken a look at his budget. Can I get your initial reaction to the governor's plan going forward?
Well, I think to me, interestingly, the governor spends hundreds of millions of dollars more than Martin O'Malley ever did, and we have now been declared a fiscally responsible government. I think I'll quote Mike Miller, who's the Senate president, who used to stay on the floor of the Senate, kind of in a humorously commented, for 4 years we heard nothing about how Maryland was the worst state. Everyone wanted to leave. We were strangling business, and in 1 week we suddenly have gone from the gutter to the penthouse.
So you're on board with Governor Hogan's budget?
Well, I mean, Governor Hogan loves to spend as much money as Martin O'Malley did. So,
wow.
I have issues with, like, on education funding. He had to make some cutbacks. He's directed them, at the counties that didn't vote for him. So I understand the need to balance our budget. I don't want it to balance on the back of education, and especially on the back of Montgomery County and Prince George's County, just because we didn't happen to vote for him. He does really hammer state employees.
Do you think he's punishing the counties that didn't vote for him?
Well, it's an interesting coincidence. I mean, the man came to the Committee for Montgomery breakfast in December, 800 people in Rockville, and no fewer than 5 times during that breakfast he reminded people that we were one of 4 jurisdictions in the state that did not vote for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's very aware of that, and I understand elections have consequences. They just shouldn't have consequences on on students, none of whom, I can guarantee, voted for him.
State Senator Richard
interesting.
Madaleno, thanks for joining us. We've heard a lot of happy talk this last week out of Annapolis, so I'm glad we could end it here this morning with you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Shots fired at the governor.
There we go.
Right.